Hey friends, welcome back. Today we're going to make this sweet little cross. You can use it for a pendant like I'm showing it here, or if you decide you're going to go crazy and make 3 of them, you can make a matching set of earrings as well. It's easy, it's fast, and it's just really sweet and simple. And if you put it with your favorite ball chain, I love that look. It makes a really gorgeous gift for yourself or for anyone that you love. Alright you guys, let's get started. Alright, so to start this project, I'm using 12 inches, which is way more than we need, but I'm using 12 inches of 20 gauge round soft copper wire, and I'm just going to balance it on my finger here and try to find the middle of it, or certainly you could measure it. So I get the approximate middle. This is more wire than we need, so don't worry if it's a little bit off. And grip the center of the wire with some fine nose pliers. I'm using my fine flats. You could certainly be using your chain nose. Put your thumb close to it and just take a nice bend. Just push and bend the wire over on itself like a little hairpin. And that's pretty good. Put this on the pad of your finger, and then you can, hold on to it real close and just do a very gentle squeeze. Get it a little bit closer together. If you're going to dangle something from it, make sure you've got a little room there at the bottom to dangle. Otherwise, don't worry about it. And get it to about there. You'll turn the wire on its edge. Take it into the plier with just a little millimeter down here. Do a slight bend out to the left and a slight bend out to the right. It's roughly 90 degrees. You'll use your finger right here. It's going to be a real small space, so we'll have to refine it, but you can start a curve. You can re-grip if it's easier for you. Start a little curve. Keep it real close and deep, to the point here. Just like that. So the wire's up on its edge and you've just got this soft little curve. I'm just going to refine this side a little bit. Let the wires cross up here and then just work them down. Depending on how much of a flare you want, you can make these very broad or very narrow, but the length from the tip to where they cross here should be 3/4 of an inch. So whenever you get it looking, just use your fingers, whenever you get it looking the way you want, and I'll use my plier to help me make sure that this little point stays up on its edge, so you can refine that with a plier if you need to. And then I'm happy with that, and I'll just measure from where it crosses to the bottom of the wire. And that should be about 3/4 of an inch, so I'll reduce my space slightly. You can see here that they cross right about 3/4 of an inch. Doesn't need to be exact. And I'll just mark that spot with my finger. Whoop. If I can pick my wire back up. Certainly you can use a little ruler, and actually I think I'm going to do that. Alright, so I'll just use my caliper and measure that. So from where they cross to the tip, it's about 3/4 of an inch or 20 millimeter. And I'll just flick this so we can see inch, so about 0.8 inch or 20 millimeter. Okay, so when you get that and you've got it shaped the way you want it, just pinch it right there at the center where they cross. Doesn't have to be exact. And give it a little jiggle. So you're just pinching that and giving it a little jiggle. And that looks pretty good. Right where they touch right there. And again, you can measure it if you want to, but I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm going to hold my plier and I'm going to make a horizontal bend out to either side. Trying to stay underneath the camera here for you. So I'll just grip my wire right here, hold real steady. I'll use my finger and just point it off to the right hand side. Do the same with the opposite side. Just grip it right there where they meet. Use your finger and get a real tight push. And bring it into horizontal like that. It's okay if they're a millimeter or so off. We're going to tie that spot, but try to get it close. You can use your pliers and help you adjust it. About like that. Once you get them to horizontal, we're going to work one side at a time. Once you get them even up here, let's push and go slightly down, not much, and keep gripping right there with the plier real tight. You can use your finger and start a slight curve on the wire. You can measure if you want to, or you can eyeball about a half an inch. About a half an inch. And that's going to be about 12 millimeter. So right about there, about a half an inch. I'm going to grip. You could certainly put it down on your mat, and you could certainly measure it that way too. So I've got the cross flat. I'm gripping it this way. I'm going to turn my wire up and over the head of the plier and straight across the body of the heart so that I have a little point on this side. And then while I've got it, I'm going to go ahead and just bend it out slightly to start a little curve. And this is a tight space, so you might, once you get it slanted, you might just let go and use your pliers and just start to get a nice little leafy curve on this wire. And we can squeeze this a little bit more closed. Hold on to it right there and just start a curve. Just like that. Take your time and refine that to your liking. So it should kind of look like that. So it just swoops down into the opposite armpit. That's kind of how I do it anyway. While I'm over here, I'm just going to use the curve underneath to line it up. I'll put my plier right here. And we're just going to make a sharp bend back up to the top. I am not making a Celtic cross. This is just a traditional four bends in the wire. Get it real close. And a little bit wonky, but I can adjust it. Just use your plier and make small adjustments as needed. If they don't line up quite right, like if it's too much to the center, add a little more curve to your arms, and then you can reduce, it'll pull the wire back slightly. And that's pretty good. I'm going to take this one and bend it down slightly. If you want to measure, you can, or you can, well, we'll put it down on our mat this time. So I'll put my armpit there where 4 points cross, and I'll come out to half an inch. And if you want to, if it's easier for you to handle it, just take your Sharpie marker and mark the wire right there at half an inch. Grip it in your plier this way so the cross is laying flat. Hold steady you're going to grip right before that mark. Push up and push all the way over the plier into a horizontal line, slanting slightly upward. You squeeze that slightly. Grip it from the side, pull it up, and then just cause a little curve in the wire with your finger here on the bottom of it. And then you can take the top wire and the same, you can either use your plier or you can just use tension by going up and kind of pushing back a little bit to cause that curve. And just come straight across the body and out diagonally. Very pretty, kind of like a leaf shape. And then just use your fingers and gently modify it until they look about the same. I'm happy with that. Get underneath the wire, and then right here at the center, do the best you can to get into the center evenly underneath the previous curve right there. Line it up and then get real close with your fingers. Hold steady with your plier and push straight up with that wire. Get them both going upright. And that's beautiful. And then up here, again, you can put it down on your mat, get the wires together. They don't have to be perfectly together, but kind of like that. And you can put the center down where 4 points cross, and you can mark 1/2 inch, just so you can eyeball it a little bit. And you can either use your fingers or you can use your pliers, but it's a tight space, so sometimes I like to use my pliers to create the curve in here. Pull back slightly, get it at an angle, and then you can stick the pad of your finger in there and use your plier to help you curve it so that that dots back over the center. You can either flip it over if your dominant hand works best. Bend it out slightly, put the pad of your finger underneath there and your finger over it to hold it and just cause it to curve. And then come back to this side. You can look at it and work these 2 wires down evenly until they cross right there where you made your mark. If you didn't make marks, you just lay it down and make them cross at 1/2 inch. Just work patiently and shape it until you love it. And I think I'm good with that. So where they crisscross on top, I'm going to use the top wire. Hold it real steady right there. See, we've got more wire than we would ever need. And I'm just going to take my plier about 1 millimeter away from the wire. And I'm just going to create a 90-degree bend. You could do it this way as well if you prefer. Once you get a slight bend, turn it over and grip it real tight again right there. And just bring it back over on itself, just like we do our earrings. Just work steady and don't let your gap in the cross close. Just keep tapping it. Once it gets close, you know, it's not tight yet, but you can just use your finger so that we don't make tool marks and just help it down. Keep it kind of diagonal. And then it's not tight yet, so the wire inside of it will still shift, but I find it's easier to cut it if you leave before you squeeze it down. Just leave a little gap. You're going to cut leaving about 1 millimeter, maybe 2, just enough to get around that inside wire and make a little curve. So about like that. And now you'll look, make sure your gap is the way you want it. Your arms and your body are the way you want them, and that's beautiful. I'm looking at the back. I'm looking at the cut to make sure that I know what I'm doing. I'm putting my plier to the outside curve and then right on the cut. and I'm squeezing it closed. And right back down on itself. Once you get it nice and closed like that, it's not tight yet, but I tend to do it that way, make sure everything lines up, and then when you love it, get into the wider part of your plier. If you're using chain nose, you're at a benefit because the wider part of your plier will be much wider. So you can get into the wider part of your plier and squeeze until almost like you feel like it's going to crush the inside wire. Don't break your wire, but get a real good squeeze on it to tighten it up. Right there. Make sure that we don't see that cut, so if it turns, you can come behind here and use your plier to just make sure it lines up with the wire beneath it so that you can't see that little cut. But do make sure that it's closed down tightly, and if you need to slant the cut down, then get on the cut with your plier and behind it and give slight tapping until you can curve that wire. And that's about good there. It's closed up on itself, it's tight, my inside wire doesn't move, and that's what you want, is for the inside wire not to move. So I'm going to give it another little tap. Almost like I'm denting the wire, you see? So that's pretty good. All right, so with the top one, we'll get our round nose plier. You can grip it right here to the side, just with the small part of the plier, just like that, and just gently use the plier to create the shape for your loop. So if you want a bigger loop, you go deeper into the plier. Make sure you've got a little bit of space right there, about 1 millimeter or so off the wire. I should have shown you. See where I'm gripping it? And so I've got about 1 millimeter right there. And then I'll just use the plier head, bring my wire all the way over the plier, all the way around, and to the back of the cross. So go behind it. Make sure that your loop is sitting nice and right next to the little bump that's already there in the back, the cut wire. So you might have to use your plier and kind of negotiate it there a little bit and get it to line up, you know, side by side there, like that. So it's a nice clean wrap. So I'm looking at the back, there's my cut, and I've got my loop wire coming right next to it, nice and side by side. It is optional if you want to come back through the loop. I just find it secure. So once I get it angled right in the back, I'm going to come back here to the front, hold on to it with leaving yourself some space right there so that you can bring that wire all the way over. Use your finger and help it down. And then before you make it tight, you can snip it with about 2 millimeter, 3 millimeter to spare. Put your finger back here to give you some leverage. Use your plier and you can turn this wire, get a real tight curve on it, turn it into the loop, I'm looking at the back of the cross now. Once I get it turned and pointed into the loop, I'll just use my plier to help me go all the way around the wire and settle that cut down right there. It should be nice and clean from the front. You can squeeze it closer together. If you see your cut, you can get your plier in there and make a very fine and careful cut and make it a little shorter. You don't have to go back through there. You could just end it. But I find that, you know, then if it yanks, sometimes the loop will open up. So if you can do this, do this. If you have another way that you can close your loop up there that you prefer, then do your way. But once you get that closed, I'll just have a little sanding I need to do. I'm just going to use my plier and tap things so that they lay nicely next door to each other. That's lovely. I'll make sure that my arms and everything look good and they're good. I would make the loop a little bigger than that, and then it's easier to get through. So make it a little bigger than I showed you. And now we'll use 6 inches of 28 gauge weaving wire, or 26 gauge, whatever you prefer. I have 28 gauge. And tying up the center is really easy. It's just 3 wraps, 3 crisscrosses. So I'll give myself 1 inch to hold, and I'll start with the wire and just go 1, 2, and 3 times. You're making sure that nothing moves right here. I'll have to tighten mine back up. I think I loosened it when I was munching that other wire. Yep, I loosened my wire, so I'm just going to tap that cut back down. It was the first bend on that came loose right there. So I just tapped it, and if yours comes loose, you can tap it. Make 3 wraps. The leading wire is the 3rd one, so bring it behind. And while we're behind the cross, make sure that your arms and your body look the way you want it to. Just make small adjustments, and then we'll go ahead from behind the cross, make 3 wraps in the opposite direction. Okay? So with that crisscross now, you can either use your metal plier or you can use your nylon jaw and just give very gentle tapping and shaping. I have my loose wires back here, and to end them, I'm going to make 3 wraps underneath the cross. So from behind here, on the right hand side where my wire is, I'll come through. I'll come to the bottom of the arm, and you can do them on the top of the arm, it's up to you. And I'll make 3 little wraps, or just 2, or just 4 or 5, whatever you want to do. I'm just going to make 3. You could give it texture if you made, several. Then you'd have to have enough on the other side to make the same. I'll cut it off back here. Use my plier to tap it down. This is real simple. It's really cute. It just gives you another simple, organic, sweet cross that you can make and offer to your customers. And once you make it a time or two, it'll be really easy. It goes very fast. You just have to work patiently with the small wire and make sure that this closure up here stays nice and tight, the first one. And then give yourself a reasonable loop. There's no weight on this, so you don't really have to put the loop back through, you don't have to put the cut end back through the loop here because it's such a lightweight piece. So if that's difficult, don't fight it. Just, wrap the loop and cut it. And I'll straighten it up by using a nylon jaw. That's super cute. Use my fingers to scooch the wrapping all into the center. Make sure that my cross is shaped nicely. The nylon jaw gives it some hardening. It also allows for you to just flatten the cross out and make sure it's all laying level. I try not to crush these ends because they're up on their edges, so just get the body of the wire and the center. And I like to tap the center on all 4 corners to make sure it lays evenly. And again, that's hardened it up a little bit as well. So cute. Now we'll make a little jump ring, put a little ring chain through it, and enjoy. I hope you guys enjoyed making this cute little cross with me. I'm going to show us how to make a very simple bail using just some of the scrap 20 gauge wire and my round nose plier. I'll use the more narrow part of the plier, and I'll come around and make a loop. Just make sure it's closed, and then you can go to a wider part of your plier and push the loop in the opposite direction. Just wrap in the opposite direction. I like to bring it all the way down across the plier. Take your cutter and cut it so that the divot end of your cutter is this way and the flush end is to the wire edge, just like that. So you've kind of got a figure 8 ring or an S ring here. You can close those loops a little bit, and we'll tap it with the hammer to give it some hardness. Be real careful, you don't need to do much, just give it some hardness. You can put the small end through the end of your cross pendant. Open it to the side. Dangle your cute, sweet cross from it. When it comes back, make sure that it meets the wire and there's no gap. You can close this side of it by making it meet the wire, and then we'll put a chain through that side. And there it is, you guys. How cute is that? It's darling. If you make 2 of them, you can have a pair of earrings, and if you make 3 of them, you can have a set. And if you make 4 of them and give yourself a little room at the bottom of the cross and the top of the cross and put a slim chain, then you could have a bracelet as well. All right, much love. Thanks for being here and creating with me. If you enjoyed this sweet little project, please remember to give me a thumbs up. Let the algorithm know that you were pleased with this project. Please leave me a comment. Tell me how you're feeling. And if you make one, please look me up on social media and show me your beautiful work. Thanks again, you guys. Much love. Bye. And please remember to hit the subscribe button.